I had a coworker of mine he was very concerned about this. He went to the doctor and they said he had high cholesterol, and he said he was reducing his meat consumption, even though, like, he loves meat and all this kind of stuff. I had not long ago learned this link between high cholesterol, high triglycerides, and glucose. And I was telling him you might want to pay attention to that. And I knew that he actually was one to eat a lot of those kind of snacks. So what I want you to understand is when you hear about triglycerides, when you hear about cholesterol, don't just think about red meat and eggs and stuff like that. I am very, very much suspect that the main reason we have issues with high triglycerides and high cholesterol is because of the high amount of glucose that we consume and our inactivity levels. What's going on, y'all? It's Sean, empowering you to look better, to feel better, and to take full control of your health. So, I have a question. Do you know what triglycerides are? And do you know what cholesterol is? And do you know why that stuff might be kind of high? Like if you're dealing with high triglycerides or high cholesterol. Now, the reason why I asked that is because for most of my life, when I heard of cholesterol, it was just my understanding was that your cholesterol, what that triglycerides and cholesterol were kind of like the same thing, and that you get high cholesterol by eating too many eggs. So you got to be careful of to not eat too many eggs and um, maybe red meat, but you just have to that's pretty much it. And then when you get older, if you're dealing with it, then you might just have to take some medicine to get some, lower cholesterol in your bloodstream. But a lot of that is not accurate. So I want to kind of talk about that here to help you understand one of the main, perhaps what I personally believe is one of the main reasons that we have issues with high cholesterol, high triglycerides in our society, and we're still not really understanding why because of what we learned, maybe 30 years ago. So triglycerides are lipids, or lipids are just another a fancy name for fats. So lipids that are found in your blood that are directly formed from when you consume excess calories, particularly in the form of high carbohydrate foods, and those particular lipids are stored into your fat cells. Okay, so that's what triglycerides are. Now, cholesterol is a lipid as well. In other words, it's a type of fat, but it's actually very important. It's important for forming like your cell membranes. It's important for forming hormones in your body. Important for forming bile, which is like a stomach acid. And also it's important for forming vitamin D, which is incredibly important for health. Now, apparently, your liver makes all the cholesterol that your body needs. It makes all of it. Okay. And um, the relation between triglycerides and cholesterol is that uh, cholesterol, apparently, the form that it's in, it can't really travel through your bloodstream. So it combines with triglycerides and with protein to create something called lipoprotein to travel through your bloodstream. Now, you've probably heard there are two different kinds of cholesterol, good and bad, like HDL, high density lipoprotein. It's good cholesterol. LDL, low density lipoprotein is bad cholesterol, so to speak. Now, here's what I wanted to really get to. The thing that really, really started me, I want to say this is probably about maybe about 5 years ago. The thing that really started me to learn is that high triglycerides, high cholesterol. Well, for one, go ahead and like remember, like eggs. Now, people have kind of like thrown away that whole thing about eggs being so bad with lowering your cholesterol just because they're high in cholesterol. That has kind of already been debunked. So definitely do your research on that. But a lot of high cholesterol and high triglycerides comes from high consumption of sugary, starchy foods, in particular in processed food form. Okay. Not only that, but also inactivity levels which allow glucose to just accumulate in your body and in your bloodstream. Okay. These are things that lead to that. I had a coworker of mine who was years ago. He was very concerned about this. He went to the doctor and they said he had high cholesterol, and he said he was reducing his meat consumption, even though like he loves meat and all this kind of stuff. But he was hoping that made a difference, but it wasn't making that much of a difference. However, I had not long ago learned this link between high cholesterol, high triglycerides, and glucose, which is the form that sugars and starches take when they're in your bloodstream. And I was telling him you might want to pay attention to that. And I knew that he actually was one to eat a lot of those kind of snacks. He wasn't particularly overweight or anything. It's just that he had a high consumption of those. So what I want you to understand is when you hear about triglycerides, when you hear about cholesterol, don't just think about red meat and eggs and stuff like that. Because I am very, very much suspect that the main reason we have issues with high triglycerides and high cholesterol is because of the high amount of glucose that we consume and our inactivity levels. Okay. So pay attention to the sugar that you're consuming. Now, as we know, sugar is pretty addictive. It's very addictive. Let's just go ahead and put it out there. It's very addictive. Um, and it's added to all of our foods. It's not a coincidence. People know that. They know that it's addictive, and that's why they put so much of it in there. But what I want you to understand is that you can overcome sugar addiction. And the truth is you must do it. Okay. You have to do it. So again, without me going into a whole nother podcast episode, pay attention to your sugar when it comes to triglycerides and cholesterol. That's probably a bigger issue for you, I believe, than however much meat you're eating and stuff like that. Okay. So the way that you get rid of excess glucose, that's going to be you exercising every day. Well, not just exercising, exercising and moving a lot every day. Next thing is probably biggest impact for us in our society. You have to reduce your glucose levels that come from the food that you eat. So that means you need to pay attention to the sugars you're consuming through liquids and through processed foods, especially. Okay. And then another thing is stop eating after dark. One day I'm gonna record something about that. But it turns out the time of day that you eat can affect your blood glucose as well. When you eat food during the day versus when you eat food after dark actually has a different effect on your blood glucose. Go figure. But again, you got to understand there's a lot about the way we've our bodies run that we've kind of reduced and simplified, but it turns out that our bodies are a lot more complicated than we make them. And so time of day matters too, but that's a whole different episode. So in other words, or just to conclude, pay attention to your glucose if you're trying to get your triglycerides and your cholesterol down. That's a thing that we didn't learn about when I was a kid, but you need to pay attention to that because that could be why your triglycerides and your cholesterol are high. Have a good day. If you like this content, you might also be interested in one of my books. Learn how you can take steps literally today to successfully manage, control, and overcome common issues such as high blood pressure, diabetes, and belly fat. It's all about putting power back in your hands to improve your own health. Get your book copy today by the links in the description or by visiting seanmcclennan.com/books. Also, don't forget, hit the like button and subscribe, and join my email list at seanmcclennan.com/subscribe.